What's up, guys? JK95 here. Today I'm going to be talking about my least favorite holiday, Columbus Day, and why I believe that Christopher Columbus does not deserve his own holiday. When I was a little boy, just like every other American school child in kindergarten, early elementary school, we were all taught that Columbus was like this great explorer who discovered America and paved the way for our great nation. Let me just assure you right now that that is complete and utter bullshit. Columbus, not only did he not discover anything, how can you discover a place where people have been living since the end of the last ice age? But on top of that, he wasn't even the first European to step foot on American soil. That honor would go to Leif Erikson the Viking, who in 1000 AD had trading posts in what is today Canada, and made like one expedition into what is today New England, only to get his ass kicked by the Native Americans who have been living there since the end of the last ice age. Columbus, on the other hand, not only did he not discover anything really, he never stepped one foot in the continental United States. All he did was bounce around the Caribbean island hopping and running a terrorist regime throughout the place. I'll explain more in depth momentarily. Before any of you call me a social justice warrior for being anti-Columbus Day, let me assure you that I was opposed to the idea of Columbus getting his own holiday before it even became popular to do so. When I was like a freshman in high school at 14 years old, I frequently get into these heated debates with somebody who shall remain nameless over whether or not Christopher Columbus deserved his own holiday. Me saying he doesn't, the other person saying he did, but the other person later admitted to me years later that they only did so just for the sake of arguing with me, and that they too were on my side, that Columbus doesn't deserve his own holiday. So I was opposed to Columbus having his own holiday, albeit for different reasons back then, like years before it became popular to oppose it. But without further ado, I'm going to explain why Christopher Columbus does not, I repeat, not deserve his own holiday. Well, for starters, he landed in what is today the Bahamas, and the natives there who had been living there for thousands of years at first welcomed him and his crew with open arms, and Columbus repaid them with bloodshed, conquest, genocide, sex slavery, etc., etc. And by the time it was over, like, the native population of the Bahamas had gone down to like 200. And on top of that, when Christopher Columbus ruled over the island of Hispaniola, which consists of the modern-day Dominican Republic and Haiti, Columbus forced little kids to work in the mines looking for gold, and Columbus set these rigid quotas, and if they weren't met, these kids would have their hands and feet cut off, and they'd be put on display as a warning sign. And the problem is that the places where Columbus thought were rich with gold, they weren't. And on top of that, Columbus once had a native woman's tongue cut out when he was in what is today Venezuela, all because this woman suggested he wasn't of noble birth. And on top of that, Columbus and his men took captive brides from the natives, and their preferred type was girls aged 8 to 10. And once the whole Caribbean was like conquered in Columbus's name, he refused to baptize Native Americans and let them convert to Christianity, because in the mid-1400s, one of the popes issued this papal bull stating that any non-Christians that, like, Portuguese and Spanish merchants encounter along like their colonies can legally be enslaved. And that's why Columbus wouldn't let natives get baptized and embrace Christianity, so he could keep them enslaved. And that papal bull was reaffirmed in 1492 when Rodrigo Borgia became pope and took on the name Alexander VI. So Columbus didn't discover jack. People had been living there for thousands of years. Celebrating Christopher Columbus to me is literally the same as celebrating Osama bin Laden or celebrating ISIS or celebrating MS-13, like giving them their own holiday. I personally support renaming Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day and making it a federal holiday where everybody has off work and school that day. Another thing I'd like to make note is that once again I am not jumping on a bandwagon here, and I'm not looking at like biased left-wing news sources and foreign propaganda when I'm forming my opinions about Christopher Columbus. I'm just looking at the historical facts, and also take note that Christopher Columbus kept his own journal throughout his voyages, and his own words condemn him. That's where I found the whole story of Columbus and his men taking captive brides from the natives in their preferred type being little girls aged 8 to 10. I found that in Columbus's journal, like his own words condemn him and his crewmates. And another thing, one argument I hear a lot coming from like the conservatives and the people who defend Christopher Columbus is that you can't judge him by like 21st century morals, and he was a man of his time and that was a different time, and a lot of those same people have no problem judging the Prophet Muhammad Sallahu Alayhi Wassalaam by 21st century morals, because Muhammad had like a preteen bride at 54 years of age. But the difference between Columbus's preteen captive brides versus Muhammad's preteen bride was that Muhammad's preteen bride was a political marriage to solidify an alliance with his best friend Abu Bakr, an eventual successor. And Muhammad and his youngest wife, Aisha, the preteen bride, didn't even do anything in bed till she was much older. And yet these same people calling out Muhammad for having a preteen bride, which, like I said before, was a political marriage and that Aisha consented to, and that they didn't do anything in bed until much older, and political marriages were the norm for like thousands of years all over the world. Kind of like how like two companies doing a merger would operate today. That's how marriage worked like 1400 years ago. And also another thing people rip on Muhammad for is like beheading 600 male members of this tribe who happened to be Jewish. And he didn't do that just because they were Jewish. Muhammad did that because this particular tribe had committed treason by showing the invading pagan army at the Battle of the Trench a shortcut, and decapitating people for treason was like the norm, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world for thousands of years. And the same people who are like, don't judge Christopher Columbus by 21st century standards, he was a man of his time, things were different then, have no problem judging Muhammad by 21st century morals. Like, anybody with a working brain, regardless of race, religion, nationality, social group, sexual orientation, etc., what was acceptable in 622 AD and 1492 AD is not acceptable in 2019 AD. Long story short, Christopher Columbus was a pedophile warlord who doesn't deserve his own holiday and didn't discover anything. And I support renaming Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day and giving everybody like paid time off that day. And that I am not just spewing SJW propaganda or left-wing propaganda. I am going off of historical facts here, including Columbus's own words from his journal that he kept with him on his journey. And I'm also going to say that I've seen the same people who defend Christopher Columbus despite all he's done, saying don't judge him by 21st century standards, have no problem judging the Prophet Muhammad Sallahu Alayhi Wassalaam by 21st century standards, and it's a total utter hypocrisy and / selective outrage. Well, that's it for today, folks. Before I close out this video, I'd like to announce that my first mixtape dropping in exactly 20 days from today on 10/21/19, aka my 24th birthday. And I will be posting my first mixtape as a single video with like the audio and track listings in the description as my 99th video, and then after that I'll do my 100th video special where I plan on reading the first 2 chapters of the Blade Saga, my book series, and I will be performing at least one of my songs from my mixtape live on video. That's it for today, folks. JK95 here. Peace out.